Welcome back. And we're talking real relative topics this morning that pertain to our everyday lives and that can change it for the better. And of course, getting some form of inspiration as well. Today, this morning, we're going to be speaking to Aadila Pretorius. And let me just tell you a little bit about her. She's the type of people that she's a people's lover. That's what I can tell you. She works with people dealing with depression, anxiety, childhood traumas, bereavement, overcoming abuse, anger management, worthlessness, and rejection. She also deals with self confidence, self image, and self worth issues, internal conflict, anchors, and triggers. She also helps people deal with their marital issues, separation, divorce, and mediation, as well as parents, teens, and families, and also assisting with behavioral change problems, self loathing, and addiction. Services are also provided via Aadila Pretorius. There's a lot more to her, and so we're going to be chatting to her. I think about, especially now that we're in the 16 days of activism, is a very pertinent topic called gender-based violence. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for joining me on the show. It's such an honor.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for having me.
I think a very pertinent topic at this moment, being in the 16 days of activism. It's nice to see that you have such a nice, interesting profile of having to be able to assist people in many directions facing very different challenges. But I think today we need to talk about a very pertinent topic. And I keep asking the question because our beloved president, President Cyril Ramaphosa, always talks about it being a pandemic. And I think it is. Since COVID-19, a lot more light has been shed on the issue of the types of violence people are facing. And I don't know if you'd agree with me, but due to the increasing challenges, the amount of violence has increased, should we say, 100-fold?
Yes, absolutely. Part of the reason for gender-based violence is very closely connected to financial income. It's also more prevalent in wars and this type of thing. And most definitely, when there is financial pressures, it obviously adds to all the pressures that is between a couple within their relationship.
I agree with you there. Let's talk about GBV and how does one deal with it. Many women, many people are in relationships where they're faced with GBV, but they don't know how to deal with the situation. Many women are still stuck in the environment where they're getting beaten up every single day. And we also need to make our viewers understand that gender-based violence doesn't just only refer to the physical aspect of it. It's an emotional one. It's a verbal one. It's, of course, taunting, torturing, and of course, gaslighting. I mean, I just spoke to, one of our guests earlier with regard to gaslighting and narcissists. And abuse comes from there as well. So we need to, of course, define the different types of abuse and see how we can heal from it. How do we heal from this? It's something very difficult. And of course, as we know, many women are people, and as we know, it's a so-called taboo subject. I'm going to say it in inverted commas, because people take it and they shove it under the carpet and then try to pretend like it's going to go away.
Correct. Yes, your analysis of that is very on par, because it's exactly that. We many times find ourselves in communities or societies where the woman just has to accept her lot, and it's very, very unfair, because at the end of the day, we know that education starts in the lap of a mother. If you want to build a nation, you have to build a woman. And when we break our women down, at the end of the day, what kind of people are we going to end up raising? Children do what we do. So if sons and daughters see mom being abused, what impact is that going to have on our future generations? So it's very, very important that we start to talk about these issues. We start bringing it out, in our societies, and we start talking about it, because, you mentioned is how do a person that finds himself in a situation where they are being abused, how do they navigate through this, and how do they heal from it? And yes, correctly so, there are different forms of abuse, from the physical and sexual abuse, which is the epitome of all of this. And then there's, of course, also the emotional and psychological abuse. And for me, what I find in most cases, that is really the starting of it all. So for many people, or for many women, I would say in the first place is you need to become aware of what is happening, because if you are being emotionally abused, now if we want to understand the starting point, which is your emotional and psychological abuse. Remember, an abuser, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, is seeking to control his victims, right? So they want to create self-doubt. They want to break down your self-concept, your self-worth, so that they can control you. So it is really an attempt by the abuser to use very highly charged emotions to control you, so that they, through the concept of breaking you down. Because once you are not a strong person or a strong individual standing for your rights, having your boundaries in place, they can then abuse you as they feel. So to give some examples of this emotional abuse, the first one we can talk about is emotional blackmail. Where a person will withhold their love, or they will continue to bring up a certain topic and shift the blame back to you all the time. Or they could be that they have unreasonable demands on you, where they want their needs to be met all the time. Um, or they try to discredit your emotions and your thoughts, saying exactly the gaslighting where, no, it's not really that. So they make you self-doubt. Then, of course, also they create a very unstable environment for you to be in, where you constantly feel you're walking on eggshells. If you're going to say something, it's going to raise an issue. And that is exactly what they do as well, is the abuser will constantly raise small issues, so that you're constantly on edge and you're constantly living in fear or in anxiety. And then, of course, I also use other control tactics, such as constant criticism, or judgment. And they also will try to keep you isolated from friends and family. So these are some of the emotional abuse tactics that the abusers do use. And then if we want to move towards, how do we get out of this? How do we help the victims? And the first step is that a person that finds him or herself, sometimes men find themselves also in these situations. But coming back to this is that, first of all, you need to be able to acknowledge that you are finding yourself in a position where you are either being insulted or broken down, and there are little telltale signs that is continuously in your environment. So it's very important that you become aware of how is your partner treating you. Is he breaking down your self-confidence? Is he breaking down your self-worth? Are you starting to doubt yourself and feeling bad about who you are and how you think about things? Because that's an awareness that you need to start to acknowledge, that there's something not right in this relationship. So then comes the biggest thing, is to come to a place of accepting. I'm finding myself in an abusive relationship. Sometimes it's very hard for people to reach that first step, because they feel ashamed, that they feel, how can I have allowed myself to be here? And it comes with guilt and shame. And it is really something that a person has to work to overcome, because as long as you don't acknowledge where you are at, the longer you're going to suffer the emotional trauma and pain that you are finding yourself in. So it's very important to find that inner reflection, that inner calm and peace, to say, this is my reality. This is where I am finding myself. What can I do about it? Because the longer you stay, the harder it's going to get. So that's the first step, is to acknowledge and accept your emotions and your experiences for what they are. The second step would be then that you need to start to change negative thoughts that you may have about yourself. Now, why do we say that? Most times, the abusers imprint on you negative thoughts about yourself because they break down your self-esteem, your self-worth through insults, through remarks. They infiltrate the way you think about yourself. So when you have this constant tape playing in the back of your subconscious mind, you are like this, you can't do that, you're useless like that. You need to, or again, the word is self-awareness. Become aware of what you think about yourself. Because if you think lowly of yourself, you are going to feel down. So you have to start to challenge these particular thoughts that the abuser has actually imprinted on your mind. To say, no, that is according to him. I know who I am. I know my worth. I know what I stand for. So it's very, very important that you start to challenge the negative that they imprinted on your psyche. The third step, I would say then, is obviously self-care. So we've moved now from acknowledging and accepting, starting to challenge this internal dialogue and negative self-talk that has been imprinted on you. And now we come to self-care. So the first step in self-care is look at some of your own desires and wants. What do you want? What do you like? And start doing stuff that you love. So what is that? It is in part starting to reclaim bits and pieces of who you were. Because when you are in an abusive relationship, you tend to lose who you are. So it's very, very important that you get in touch with yourself again. What do I love? And then start doing that. If you love art, take up an art class. If you love jogging, start jogging. But slowly start to take back your power. And yes, and part of self-care is, of course, that you start exercising because obviously, endorphin, the feel-good hormone, is released, and that already assists you in that healing process. And then, of course, is also to make your emotional, your physical, as well as your spiritual needs a priority. So do actions where you can engage spiritually, make time for prayer, for reflection, so that you connect again with the higher source of your power, your creator. So these are some of the self-care steps that you can, of course, take. And then, of course, another step in self-care is to allow for support. If you can identify at least 2 good friends or family members that you can safely confide in, that will listen to you, that will validate you, that will understand and can imagine what you find yourself in. Because remember, part of the abuser's plan is to isolate you from people. So the sooner you can, now it does not mean that you go on a rampage of gossip and backbiting and these type of things. It really is, you need to get support, because many times the victims feel very isolated. And the danger is then, of course, that they stay in that abusive relationship. And we know that normally it escalates from the emotional and the psychological to becoming physical. So the sooner you start saying, I need to get help, I need to get support, the better. And then, of course, it's also important that you are gentle with yourself. Don't rush things, don't force it, don't force, I need to heal, I need to be better. This is part of your soul's journey. It is something that you are experiencing in Earth schools for your personal growth. And it's important that you do it proper, that you do it thoroughly, so that there's a saying that in NLP that we say, what you resist will persist until you learn the lesson. So it's very important that you do it proper, because you don't want to repeat the lesson. You want to take the lessons out of it. You want to take the wisdom out of this wound and then move forward in life. So you don't have to repeat this. Yes, and then, of course, it is very important that know when you need to seek help, and seek help. Help is out there. You can live a life free of abuse, but you have to choose that. You have to make a conscious decision that you matter, because part of the abuser's ways is that they invalidate you. They make you lose your self-worth. So yeah, these are some of the steps that I can recommend to people finding themselves in abusive relationships. Um, yes, is there anything else that I can
Yeah.
contribute?
Another question I have, which has come from somebody, is we're talking about abusive relationships with spouses and things like that. But what about family members? Because the thing is, you find you start getting bullied by family members and getting emotionally abused by family members. And as you say, the gaslighting happens. And then when you do go for help to other family members, they kind of don't see the situation for what it is, because that particular person has a way of, should we say, gaslighting behind the scenes and then acting very differently in front of those family members. So when you do go for the help and they look at you as though, is she really talking the truth? Is this really happening to her, him or her? Is the emotional abuse really happening? And I think this is
Yeah.
the type of advice people are looking for, is how do you deal with that? How do you move forward? How do you take a stance?
Well, what I can say is some of the difficulty in reaching out to family members per se is exactly what you have raised, because sometimes there's the notion that family must stand together. And the person that has raised the issue is then, again isolated, although they reached out in the hope that they'll get the support. And what I can say is it's very important that if you do want to reach out to a family member, um, it is very tricky and you'll have to navigate very carefully. And I can actually strongly advise it's better to get the professional help or reach out to somebody that is neutral, that is outside of the family circle. Because if you are already isolated within the family and now you're trying to reach out to family members that's going to in any case stand with the abuser, it is better then to either reach out to someone that can professionally assist you. There are many care lines that a person can call, or it is then to reach out to your own family members and see if they can't perhaps assist you.
I agree with you there. And I think that's a very good piece of advice. Being in this type of situation and trying to take a stance professionally, I think also helps, because what happens is many a times we don't realize how badly it affects the person's mindset. And as we know, mindset is important, because if our mindset and our focus is not correct, many of people that have gone through abusive relationships, you find that they're in a very different mindset. They're in their own little bubble where they can't seem to kind of, should we say, break out of it. And as you were saying, people like yourselves is people that they can go to get that added support structure, to be able to find the relevant solutions, to be able to move forward from what they've been going through.
Yes, absolutely. And we need to consider again, many times victims find themselves, and that is again part of the abusive process, where victims find themselves unable to be able to pay for services. And it's very important that they then look at places like SADC, where they can reach out, where it's, toll-free numbers that they can dial, because there is help and you need to reach out. So it's very, very important, because yes, your mindset when you are in an abusive relationship is affected, and it can lead to mental disorders like depression, like anxiety, or complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's very, very important that the sooner you start realizing and seeing, but hold on, this person is emotionally blackmailing me, he is withholding his love, or this, like the examples that I gave earlier, it's the sooner you start realizing, but I'm being insulted here, I'm being belittled, I'm being broken down, the sooner you need to say, I need to put up my boundaries, because boundaries is also another step that a person has to take. Because once you set up your boundaries, remember the abuser is also not going to like that, and that may
Of
lead to
course
more
not.
tension in the
Yes.
relationship. But at the end of the
Adila,
day,
I'm going to butt
yes,
you there because we seem to be running out of time. What would you tell
sure.
the abuser?
Well, it's almost a topic on its own. And I would very briefly say to you that accountability is the key to transformation. If an abuser truly wants to change his or her ways, they need to be able to acknowledge that they are an abusive person, and they need to go for the necessary help and therapy to heal themselves, because only through the process of realizing and becoming accountable and taking responsibility for what they do to other human beings is the only time they can overcome that particular, call it mental illness. Is it their nuts? Is it their programming or their conditioning? Because if you truly want to transform and you want to change for the better, you want to reinvent yourself, you need to become accountable. And part of accountability is seeking forgiveness from the people that you've hurt, because that in itself is a lowering of the ego, is an overcoming of the pride, is a cleansing of the soul. Because when you can do that congruently, genuinely, with absolute sincerity, that is when change can happen. So yes, my message to abusers, they obviously, hurt people, and they are in a lot of need of help and healing. So absolutely, start by being accountable, by taking responsibility for your actions, and seek forgiveness from the people that you've hurt or harmed, and also seek the forgiveness from your creator, because Allah Ta'ala tells us that we must not be violent with anybody. So
Exactly.
so yeah, that would be my message to the abusers.
Thank you. Tell us quickly, what do you think needs to be done in this country from a GBV point of view? Because if we look at it, as I said earlier, from a government level, they keep on saying it's a pandemic. But don't you think that all the GBV organizations need to pull together and take a stronger stance to be able to say, we are not going to allow this to happen anymore. These things need to be sorted out. You saying it's a pandemic. Let's all get together, create the necessary mandates, and move forward as far as this issue is concerned. Because as we know, it's not getting any better.
I would say, in reference to what I said in my previous statement, it's okay for people to say we're not going to take this, and okay, what are you physically doing when you say we're not going to take this? What is actually being implemented? Are there
Exactly.
more stringent laws being implemented to curb this violence? And do these measures that are being taken actually have an impact? All that needs to be assessed. That does the measures work? Tested, and I would strongly, coming back to what I said earlier, you need to look at both sides of this, not condoning what the abusers are doing, but really looking at them as people they need help. We need to reform them, and we need to understand, where does that abusive nature come from? Because they need healing, they need help. And again, I'm not condoning what they are doing as right. It's absolutely wrong. But to heal from this pandemic, it's going to take, we need to heal the victims, we need to empower them, we need to give them their lives back, their self-esteem, their self-worth, and make them understand they can lead a healthy, normal life. So that's the one part of it. But the other part is, if you're coming from, let's say, the authoritarian, almost parenting style, where it's authoritarian, and if you don't do this, we're going to punish you like that, you might just get more resistance. So we need to actually start seeing the people that are abusive as human beings that are actually very hurt and very broken, and that they actually are in need of a great deal of healing and help themselves. So so I would really take an approach on two different, from two different sides.
Yeah, I agree with you there. We seem to have run out of time. I wish we could go further into the topic. I'm hoping to tap into you once again. Thank you so much for giving us some great, should we say, valuable advice on how to deal with the type of situations that these particular people are facing. And I'm hoping that as far as GBV is concerned, from a country point of view, we can look at it holistically and try and find the necessary solutions going forward. And as you're saying, of course, getting help for those abusers, so that we can put a stop to it, because we have to find the root of the problem and then, of course, find the necessary solutions. So Jazakallah so much for joining us, and of course, educating us on something really important. You do take care, and I hope to chat to you soon.
Shukran jazilan for the opportunity. I really appreciate it, and may you have a great afternoon.
You too, it's
Assalamu
been a
alaikum.
pleasure. Walaikum salam. That was Aadila Pretorius,
Shukran.
a therapist, a coach, and of course, giving us lots of advice on GBV there. I want to end today's show with something really interesting. I think it's something that's got to do with us every day, and it's about the type of situations we're in now. It's a mindset, and I read this on Fearless Motivation. It says it's a mindset. Winning or losing in life is a mindset. Because the only way you can truly win or lose in life takes place in your mind. If you think positively or negatively about life, it's a mindset and a choice. Whether you think positively or negatively about yourself, it's a mindset and a choice. So, this is what she was saying. Don't let anybody strip your value from you, take your value away, and make you think that you're absolutely worthless, because this is also a mindset. So we're saying take a positive mindset, take a positive stance, and of course, look after yourself. Take care of yourself, as she said, self-care. So that's what I have to say for you today. We seem to have run out of time. I want to thank you so much for joining us on really relative educational topics today, and we're hoping to tap into some serious ones next week too. So do join us, same time, same place. For myself and the team, have a lovely one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.